So it looks like we got some official English translations from the AOT panel at the MAPPA Stage 2023. Yo, what's good, it's your boy the Views, and Anime News Network translated some of the main interview of the AOT panel at the MAPPA Stage 2023 with director Yuichiro HayashI, Romi Park, Yuki Kaji, and Yui Ishikawa. Oh yeah, if you haven't actually watched the final chapter special 1 that came out back in March, then go watch it now because there may be some spoilers for it. So this is what director Yuichiro HayashI had to say about the Hanji death sequence. When I first received the manual scripts during the production of the first season of the final season, that scene left me in a daze. When depicting it, I condensed all the elation and sorrow I felt. Anime News Network didn't translate all of the interview, but fortunately, this Twitter account user managed to translate most of the interview, although he did warn that some of the translations are a bit rough. After talking about how shocked he was about the Hanji death sequence, Yuichiro HayashI goes on to talk about how Hanji's facial expressions are exquisite, as well as the sound director telling Romi Park to stop redoing certain lines. She says, "I was so happy because I thought the recording wouldn't be used." This is what Yuki Kaji had to say about the scene where Eren talks about his freedom. "I consulted with the sound director on the set about which Eren I should play. I also felt the strength of Ishikawa sensei, who made 10-year-old Eren talk about freedom here." Romi Park then says that Yuki Kaji was walking around the recording studio crying the whole time after the recording of the final chapters part 1. It seems that this happened because he was so absorbed in the role that the sound director even mentioned, "Watching Kaji-san like that, we were so worried about him." You gotta love Yuki Kaji right here, being so committed to the role of Eren and being so absorbed in the story. Also on stage, the key visual for the final chapters 2 was unveiled for the first time. Director Yuichiro HayashI said, "This was the only visual I could come up with after thinking about it a lot. The visual depicts a house standing alone and the shadow of someone. Who could that someone be? Well, we gotta find out until the fall." Thankfully, this Twitter account user translated most of the interview because Anime News Network only translated the main key parts from the interview. Follow this Twitter account user. It's more or less the same from what Anime News Network had to say, but they sort of expand upon what they were talking about, whereas Anime News Network sort of condensed it. But just a heads up, these are some rough translations, so some of the translations may not make too much sense. It makes me wish that Anime News Network translated the entire MAPPA AOT panel in English. But I like this one comment by Yuki Kaji when he talks about Eren and the famous freedom scene. So the main interviewer tells Yuki Kaji, "I think you have portrayed various aspects of Eren over the past 10 years, but is there anything that is particularly special to you?" Yuki Kaji says, "Of course, I knew what would happen by reading the original work, but when I received the script for a scene, Freedom, and had to perform it, it was difficult to determine which version of Eren was speaking at that moment. I had several plans in mind and before recording would ask questions and consult with the director. One of those plans was to change my voice from the current state of Eren and gradually go back in time to the freedom scene, ending it with the voice of a young 10-year-old Eren. But in the end, we settled on a portrayal that started with a slightly earlier version of Eren from around the time when he met Ramsey and had it suddenly switched to the voice of young Eren. There had been flashbacks and such, but since it started from Eren at the age of 10 from the first episode, it was challenging to portray. Ishikawa sensei, who inserted this here, who had his 10-year-old self say freedom, the very thing he had been pursuing all along, to have the mind to do this, put simply, is incredible. Truly amazing. I want to continue portraying Eren carefully until the end." I love this comment. I really am interested in Yuki Kaji's original idea of what he was going to perform for Eren's freedom scene. You have the voice actress of Mikasa Ackerman, Yui Ishikawa, mentioning that the new Kiwi feels somewhat lonely. And according to the main presenter at the MAPPA Stage, they were talking about what scenes got the biggest reactions from viewers, and apparently it was the scene where Mikasa notices the relationship of Armin and Annie. Yui Ishikawa then goes on about how Mikasa was more surprised than she had expected. She says, "Even Mikasa, who can seem insensitive, noticed how embarrassed Annie was. Her cheeks turned red. Mikasa saw a side of them that she hadn't seen before. It was a heartwarming moment turned bittersweet knowing the future developments and that they can't live happily ever after. Armin had many childhood friends and comrades, but I think there were many things he carried alone inside him, and he's smart and had become a leader. It came with a feeling of loneliness. It made me happy that he was able to find some emotional support." Even Yuki Kaji goes on about how he liked that moment, and other comments include the cast praising AOT for all these years. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys thought of this. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Like this video, subscribe for more anime reactions, reviews, comparisons, breakdowns, rankings, and more. But thank you for watching, and as always, a boy did the review, signing out.